Robert Kiyosaki's father held a PhD, worked hard his entire life, and died nearly broke. And what that single fact means for your financial future is the entire argument of this book. This is Offline Connected, where we decode the books a young, hungry strategist actually reads. Finance, power, persuasion, psychology, the canon. We read them carefully so you can absorb the core in one focused session. What follows is our analysis of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what we believe the author is really saying, and how it might apply to your life. Find a quiet place, disconnect, and let's decode. Robert Kiyosaki published this book in 1997 after years of running personal finance seminars, and it contains 6 core lessons. We are covering all of them, not picking a single chapter, but tracing the full argument from first principle to final payoff. 3 ideas power that argument. First, the rich do not work for money the way most people do. They have built a different relationship with it entirely. Second, financial literacy, specifically the distinction between assets and liabilities, is the one education the school system never gave you. Third, the exit from the rat race is not a bigger paycheck. It is a different column you begin building deliberately, starting now. Robert Kiyosaki grew up in Hawaii, the son of a highly educated government official. His biological father, a man of genuine integrity who followed every conventional rule of financial success and spent most of his adult life financially uncertain. His best friend's father, whom he calls Rich Dad throughout the book, never finished high school, but built businesses, acquired real estate, and eventually became one of the wealthiest men on the island. That contrast between 2 men Kiyosaki watched from childhood is the laboratory this book is drawn from. By his own account, he retired at 47. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was initially self-published after being rejected by traditional publishers, then picked up, translated into 51 languages, and sold more than 32 million copies. Whatever you think of Kiyosaki's methods, the idea at the center of this book has clearly struck something real in the people who encountered it. The first and most foundational idea in this book is this: the rich do not work for money. That statement sounds like it belongs on a motivational poster, but Kiyosaki means it precisely. Most people spend their lives trading hours for wages, earning, spending, earning again, spending again, and calling it progress. What the rich have built is a fundamentally different relationship with money. They do not chase paychecks. They acquire things that generate paychecks for them while they sleep, while they travel, while they are doing something else entirely. The whole system you were educated inside was designed to produce workers and consumers. The school system, the tax code, the cultural meaning of a good job, all of it points you toward employment. And employment, no matter how well it pays, is a trade of time for money. The number can grow, but the architecture stays the same. The rich have learned to make money do the trading. That is the first break, and it begins not with an investment account, but with a different way of thinking about what money is actually for. The book opens with a scene: young Robert, 9 years old, and his friend Mike sitting across from Mike's father and asking to be taught about money. Rich Dad agrees, but not the way you'd expect. He gives them both a job, sorting cans in one of his convenience stores for 10 cents an hour. They work, they wait, they get paid almost nothing. After a few weeks, Robert is frustrated. He goes to Rich Dad and says the pay is too low. Rich Dad smiles. He says, "You are learning what most adults never figure out." He cuts their pay, then cuts it again. Eventually, he offers to pay them nothing at all, and the lesson is not punishment. It is about the emotion that drives most financial decisions. Robert is angry. He is resentful. He wants more. Rich Dad is watching to see whether he will make a move or whether he will just keep waiting to be compensated. Most people, Rich Dad explains, never escape this cycle because they let 2 emotions run their finances: fear and desire. fear of not having enough, and desire for the things money can buy. Together, those two emotions trap people in a continuous loop. Work harder, earn more, spend more, feel behind again. The raise arrives, the lifestyle inflates to meet it, and the treadmill resets at a higher setting. Kiyosaki calls this the rat race. And the point is not that it is morally wrong, but that it is invisible to almost everyone running it. The rich did not discover a secret investment strategy at age 40. They decided early to see the cage before it became the only option they knew. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. If you have received a raise in the last 2 years and still feel financially behind, you're not dealing with an income problem. You're experiencing the exact mechanism this book was written about. More money arriving, and the same sensation of it never being quite enough because the lifestyle expanded before anything else did. That is not a character flaw. It is the predictable output of a system that was never designed to teach you anything other than how to earn and spend. The first step this book recommends is not a financial action. It is a moment of clarity, noticing the cage before deciding whether to stay in it. Most people never take that step. They negotiate another raise, add another shift, and keep waiting for a number that somehow never arrives, the number that would finally feel like enough. That number does not exist inside the rat race. The race is designed so it doesn't. The central thesis of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is not that hard work is worthless or that ambition is misplaced. It is something more precise, that hard work aimed only at earning a paycheck is a ceiling with no exit ramp, and that the rich learned to aim their effort at something different before the paycheck became the only point. The pattern Kiyosaki identifies is not about laziness or luck. It is about the direction of effort, and the direction most people have been pointed toward income rather than ownership is not accidental. It is a design. Understanding that is the first crack in the wall. What the second idea in this book reveals is exactly what lies on the other side of that wall, and why the concept most people think they already understand is the one they have been getting precisely wrong their entire financial lives. The second idea is the intellectual engine of this book. Financial literacy is not about reading a spreadsheet or learning to track a budget. It is about understanding one specific distinction, a distinction that almost no school in the world teaches. The distinction between an asset and a liability. Kiyosaki's definitions are deliberately simple. An asset puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out. Everything else, the jargon, the financial instruments, the complexity of institutional investing, collapses into this one test. If something generates cash flow for you, it is an asset. If it costs you money to own and maintain, it is a liability. The devastating implication is that most of what the middle class has spent decades acquiring, under the firm impression they were building wealth, sits on the wrong side of that line. The house they believe is their greatest asset costs them money every month in mortgage payments, property taxes, maintenance, and insurance. It may appreciate over decades, but while it is costing them money every month, it is a liability. Financial literacy, as Kiyosaki defines it, begins with the willingness to look clearly at what you own and ask which column it is actually feeding. In one of the book's most clarifying passages, Kiyosaki diagrams the financial statements of 3 different people, not by dollar amount, but by structure. The poor person earns from labor. That income flows directly out through expenses. There is no asset column. The entire financial life is a pipeline from paycheck to spending, with nothing accumulating on the other side. The middle-class person earns more and feels better about it. They have also acquired what they believe are assets, the house, the car, the furniture on a payment plan. But in Kiyosaki's framework, these are liabilities. The mortgage, the car payment, the insurance, the maintenance, all of these create a continuous flow of money going out rather than in. The middle-class person is not wealthier in practice. They are running the same treadmill at a higher setting, with more commitments locking them to the pace. The rich person's financial statement is structurally different. Income is fed not only by labor, but by assets, real estate holdings, stock positions, intellectual property, small businesses, things that generate cash flow independent of how many hours are worked. And the crucial detail here is sequence. The rich build the asset column first, before the lifestyle expands, before the liabilities accumulate. They acquire things that pay them, and only then do they allow expenses to follow. Most people do this in reverse. They upgrade the lifestyle now and tell themselves they will invest what's left at the end of the month. What is left, almost without exception, is nothing. The lifestyle consumed it. It always does. An asset puts money in my pocket. A liability takes money out of my pocket. Think about the last significant purchase you made. Not food or rent, but something you chose deliberately. A car upgrade. A new subscription you told yourself was an investment in your development. A piece of furniture you put on a credit card because it would make the apartment feel more complete. Now ask Kiyosaki's question. Does this put money into my pocket or take it out? Most people have never asked it. Not because they are careless, but because the entire consumer economy was built on the premise that they won't. Advertising is designed to make liabilities feel like rewards, and the feeling of reward is real, even when the financial result is not. Financial literacy, by Kiyosaki's definition, is not about suppressing that feeling. It is about knowing which column you are feeding before you open your wallet. Most people have spent decades feeding the wrong column, not out of stupidity, but out of an education that never drew the column for them in the first place. The second idea in Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the financial distinction the school system omitted. Not accounting principles, not portfolio theory, not tax strategy. One concept: assets put money in, liabilities take it out. Once you see that clearly, really see it, not just nod at it, something happens to how you read every purchase, every raise, every conversation about money. The question stops being how much do I earn and starts being what does my money do after it arrives? That shift in perception, if you actually apply it, reshapes the structure of your financial decisions before it reshapes a single number. The numbers follow the structure. They always have. And that leaves the question the third idea answers. If you understand assets, how do you actually begin building them from wherever you are right now, with whatever you currently have? The third idea is the one that turns understanding into action. Kiyosaki calls it minding your own business. Not your employer's business. Not the business of responsible spending or staying out of consumer debt. Your own business. Meaning the asset column that belongs to you, that generates cash flow for you, that grows independently of whether you show up to your job next Monday. Most people spend their working lives building someone else's asset column. The company that employs them is an asset for its owners. The house they rent from a landlord is an asset for the landlord. The mutual fund their payroll deductions slowly fill is an asset for the fund managers who take a percentage regardless of performance. Kiyosaki is not arguing that employers are villains or that tenants are failures. He is pointing out something more subtle, that most people are so absorbed in building other people's wealth that they have never truly begun on their own. The third lesson is not a complex investment strategy. It is a directive. Begin, however small, however imperfect. Begin the column that belongs to you. Kiyosaki describes a period in his own life, after leaving the military, before the real estate investments that would eventually allow him to retire, when he was broke, working a regular job, and spending his evenings in seminars and reading investment books. His colleagues at work were more focused, more promotable, more likely to receive the next raise. By every conventional metric, they were ahead of him. But he was building something they were not with impressive sums. The early investments were small, some of them failed entirely, and there were stretches where the learning cost more than it returned. But a habit was forming, the habit of asking, before any dollar was spent, whether it could be directed instead towards something that would eventually pay him back. He kept his job while building the column alongside it. He did not quit the rat race first and then figure out what to replace it with. He built the exit ramp while still running the track. Quietly, consistently, for years before any of it produced the income to justify the patience. This is one of the most practical and most underrated points in the book, and one the popular version of Kiyosaki's message often obscures. You do not quit to become free. You build carefully and consistently for years until the asset column generates enough to cover the expenses, and only then does the choice to leave become a real one rather than a fantasy. Most people are waiting for a lump sum that feels like permission. Kiyosaki's point is that neither the permission nor the lump sum is coming from the outside. You start now. You start small, and you let compounding do the arithmetic that human effort alone never can. The rich focus on their asset columns while everyone else focuses on their income statements. If you're waiting until you earn more to begin investing, you are operating on a premise this book specifically dismantles. The amount is not the barrier. The structure is. Someone earning $40,000 a year who consistently directs $200 a month toward an asset that compounds is building a different financial architecture than someone earning 3 times that who directs everything into a lifestyle that costs the same amount to maintain. The numbers look unimpressive early. That is precisely why most people stop before they see the effect, or never start at all. The early years of building an asset column are not cinematic. The income is small, the growth is invisible to anyone watching from the outside, and the temptation to spend that money on something that would feel rewarding right now is constant. But the question Kiyosaki is asking is not whether you can feel the progress in month 3. It is whether you are building something that does not require your physical presence to sustain itself, and whether you are willing to start before you feel ready, because ready is a feeling the system is designed to withhold. The third idea is the practice itself. Mind your own business by building an asset column that generates cash flow independently of your labor, and begin now. Not after the debt clears. Not after the next raise. Not when the circumstances feel right. The circumstances never feel right. That is part of the design of the system this book is critiquing. Employment and consumer debt and lifestyle inflation work together to create a horizon that perpetually recedes. There's always a good reason to wait one more year before beginning. The 3 ideas together, the mindset shift, the literacy, the practice, form one coherent argument across 6 lessons through 2 father figures spanning 2 completely different financial lives. What does that argument look like when you hold it against a real life? Someone outside this book, someone whose story most people already know. There is a story, not Kiyosaki's, but one that runs alongside his argument like a parallel proof worth sitting with here. Warren Buffett was 11 years old when he bought his first stock, 3 shares of Citi Service Preferred, purchased with money he had saved from delivering newspapers and selling chewing gum door to door. He had no inheritance, no family with a seat on any exchange. His father was a Nebraska congressman, not a financier. What he had and what he later said explained almost everything about his results, was one early habit: pointing his money toward things that would grow rather than things that would disappear. He watched those 3 shares drop sharply after he bought them. He held them. He sold when they recovered, collecting a small profit. Then he watched them climb to many times what he had received, and he said later that experience taught him something he never forgot. Patience inside an asset is not the same as waiting for a salary. One builds silently. The other resets the moment you stop showing up. By the time Buffett was 30, he had accumulated the equivalent of several $million in today's terms. Not from high salary, not from inheritance that arrived when he needed it, but from the compounding of assets acquired systematically across nearly 2 decades of one consistent choice. Some portion of every dollar he received was aimed at the asset column, not the expense column. The ratio was disciplined. The patience was deliberate. The result was geometric in a way no salary ever is. What Kiyosaki calls the asset column, Buffett called the only question worth asking. Will this thing be worth more tomorrow than it is today, and will it generate something for me while I wait to find out? The instruments differed. Buffett used stocks and operating companies. Kiyosaki used real estate and small businesses. But the architecture is identical. Earn from labor. Direct a portion of that earning toward things that earn for you. Allow time to compound the difference. The tragedy of the rat race, as Kiyosaki frames it, is not that the race is hard. The tragedy is that most people run it faithfully for 40 years and never pause to notice whether there was a door they walked past near the beginning. A door that was never locked, but that nobody told them to try. 3 ideas. 1 book. What do you actually do with them? Kiyosaki is deliberate about this. And here is where the book is most practical and also most frequently misread. People read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and feel the click of recognition. They go home, feel subtly overwhelmed by the distance between where they are and what the book is describing, and then do nothing. The whole architecture of financial freedom seems to require a different life than the one they currently have. They tell themselves they will start when they earn more, when the debt is lower, when the timing is better. This is the rat race completing its own circuit. The feeling of not yet ready is part of how the system sustains itself. And Kiyosaki's answer to it is not a grand strategic plan. It is a single question applied before a single decision. Of the 3 ideas, the one with the lowest activation energy, the one you can begin using before this session ends, is the second, the asset-liability distinction. Before your next significant financial decision, ask one question. Does this put money in or take it out? Not as a philosophical abstraction, as a literal test, applied in the moment the decision is being made. Write it somewhere visible. Put it as a note on your phone. Make it the thing you ask before you agree to a new subscription, sign a new lease, accept a new line of credit, or upgrade the car 2 years before you need to. That question, applied consistently, reshapes the structure of your decisions before it changes a single number in your bank account. And the numbers eventually follow the structure. They always have. Once the question is a genuine habit, the next step, building the column, becomes less overwhelming and more obvious. You will know what you're aiming at, and you'll begin to see the pieces more clearly. Start with the question, build a habit around it, then build the column from it. Robert Kiyosaki's father held a PhD, worked hard his entire life, and died nearly broke. 2 fathers, 2 financial lives, 1 difference, not in intelligence, not in effort, not in the quality of their character, but in what they each believed money was for and how they understood it to move. The book that came from watching that contrast has sat on more nightstands, more airport shelves, more recommended reading lists than almost any personal finance title in history. Whether it changed anything for the millions of people who read, it depends entirely on one thing: whether they ask the question. The next decode is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, a book that takes everything Rich Dad, Poor Dad says about financial behavior and goes deeper into the hidden emotional wiring that determines whether any of it actually holds in a real life under real pressure. That one is coming next. Before then, leave a comment below. What is the one financial belief you were raised with that this book's framework makes you want to reconsider? One sentence. I read everyone.